Hello and welcome to our Thursday night live. On this video I'm going to take you through 3 different ways to stop your threads nesting underneath when you start your top stitching. It can be super annoying and can mess up the whole look of your finished project, so I'm going to go through lots of tips and tricks to help you avoid that. But before we get into it, I will just say we are live, so I am probably going to talk a little bit more than a regular YouTube tutorial. Apologies for that in advance. I'm going to say hello to people as I go through and answer their questions too. If you are watching on replay, however, and you have questions, comments or queries, please do pop them in the comments box below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And hello to everybody who is live. So I can see Donna, Sandra, Susan, Valerie, Hilary, Esther, Linda, another Linda, and Martin as well. Hello, thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, comments or queries and you're live, please do pop them in the chat box, the live chat box, and I will get back to you when I can too. So there's a lot to get through on this video, so I'm gonna dive right in. But before I do, I just wanted to let you know that today has been the start of the packing for the bag maker's box. I've actually got one here. It's the very first one that is packed up. These are all going to be going out mid next week, although I am going to try and get some out for the overseas customers for tomorrow. So if you are a Bag Maker's Box subscriber, do keep an eye on your emails and you will get a notification when yours ships. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you want to join in on the fun, you can find a link to the Bag Maker's Box in the description, along with all the information for the 77 Club as well. Right, I am going to pop across to the other camera. I can see we've got Muriel from Florida. Muriel, we need some of your sun, please, because it's been pouring down with rain all day today. So please send it to us. Okay, so I've prepped up some samples. Oh, before I get into the samples, a couple of the reasons why you might want to use these techniques is if you are doing a plique to get the, no bunching on the ends of all your pieces, all of these individual pieces on this kiwi bag. This is the Feeling Fruity pouch, which is one of my patterns where you get the appliques for it included. And all of these pieces are appliqued on, so you're going to want to make sure that there's no nesting, no bunching at the ends of your thread to get it looking really neat and tidy. I will show you another example, which is a bag that I made just last week. If you're part of the Facebook group, then you will have seen this. This is the Stitch backpack. Oh, got a pin stuck on there. So all of these applique pieces, you want to have them so that they look continuous. So you don't want to get the bunching and the nesting. And I'm going to show you a little example of what I mean for that in a second. But if you are interested in applique finishing and all the tips and tricks for bag making, we are doing a full masterclass on that within the 77 Club this month in September. If you are watching this later on, at any point that will be recorded and you can watch it as soon as you join the 77 Club, or if you are a member of the 77 Club, you can find that in the masterclass or skills builder area. All right, I'm going to pop back across and I'm going to pop to the other camera. There we go. Right, so I have got some samples, like I say, that I'm going to show you. So first of all, I'm going to emanate the nesting or bunching that we are talking about. Oh, thank you. Jane says that bag is totally epic. Thank you, Jane. Someone else from Florida, from North Central Florida. Hello, hello. Right, so what happens when we get bunching? The bunching is from the bobbin thread. So I've actually need to kind of do a little jiggery pokery to make that actually happen. Why is it? It's so typical, isn't it? I've just pulled that off and it's fallen on the floor. Apologies. I grab that. It's typical, isn't it? Now it's probably going to do all sorts of fun because it's all come unwound. Oh, the joys. Right. Let us quickly rewind that and we will is still, I'm just checking that everything's still working. Yeah, okay, cool. So I'm going to prep it up and try and make it do the nasty thing that we don't want it to do, so that you can see it in action and why you don't want it to happen, because if you don't know what I'm talking about, that is going to then make sense. Right, apologies for that brief interlude. And then I will explain to you why it happens and how to stop it. So we're imagining that this is the top of our bag. Actually, let's start this end. And we're going to do a nice top stitch. We've got a huge bit of our bag here, and we're going to do a nice top stitch, and I'm hoping that it's going to go wrong, which sounds quite funny to say. In fact, let's do it on the other side so we can see the stitching better. No, we want it on that side because we want the underneath to be showing. I've got it on a longer stitch length, and off we go, and we think, great, I'm going to do a back stitch as well. Back stitch to finish and pull the work out. Now then we look over and we go, ooh, what has happened there? Well, obviously we've back stitched. It didn't quite do it as much as I wanted it to do, but often you get a little nest as well. Maybe you can see it a bit there. There's that kind of bunching, that kind of nasty nesting, as we call it, the thread nesting. So one of the reasons why it did that is because I actually set it up to fail, to be honest, because I wanted to show you. I hadn't pulled, I don't know if you noticed, but I hadn't pulled the bobbin thread up to the top. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is that it was very short. The thread wasn't at the top, but it also was very short. So if you are using your cutting mechanism, if you have that option on your machine, if you're using your cutting mechanism on your machine, the thread will be cut underneath, so it will naturally be short and it won't have enough, it will kind of get caught when you get started. So the way that we can counteract that, let me grab this one. We are going to do what we should be doing when we're doing our applique. So we're going to pull our bobbin thread out a little bit, and our top thread actually, if I can grab it. And we're going to keep it a bit longer, and we're going to grab both of them so that we've got long tails. I like to call them tails. I'm going to start my top stitching. I'm going to do it on this side again so that we can see. And as soon as we start, it's the only disadvantage to having your nails painted. It's quite hard to pick up small things. Karen Ann says that always happens to me. Oh, thanks, Deb. Love the colour of your nails. Thank you. Thank you, Esther, as well. Okay, so I'm holding the thread at the back. And you know what? There's something that I've forgotten to do. One second. Let me turn on my extra light. And it might give... Okay, that's not going to play the game, but that's fine. We are going to hold onto our thread at the back. Can you see I've wrapped it around my finger? We're not pulling it. We're not pulling it on the machine. We don't want to cause any stress on the machine. We're just holding it so that when it starts, it can't go underneath. It can't pull that bobbin thread underneath. It's always the bobbin thread that causes it. I'm not going to do a back stitch because we're imagining that this is our lovely top stitch and we want it to look really pretty. No, I didn't want to end with a needle down, needle up and then pull the work out. And I'm cutting the threads off long. This is it's not perfect, you'll have to excuse that, but this is a number 4 stitch length because sometimes as well with the top stitching you want it to look longer because it's more prominent, especially if you're using a contrast like I have here. And also sometimes with the faux leather or the vinyl on the machine, it can get stuck a little bit, get a bit sticky. So having a longer stitch can help to create that look even more if your machine tends to get a little bit stuck, if that makes sense. So we haven't got a cast on and we haven't got a cast off, but we want to finish it off. So we're going to turn to the back, that's the light blue for me. It is the bobbin thread and the top thread, Karen Ann, that I'm holding. So on the back, I've pulled that back stitch, which is the bobbin thread, sorry, on the back, which is the purple thread, the part of the variegated thread which is purple, I should say. And there's a little loop there. I'm hoping you can see that. And I'm using a pin to pull that through. So both are on the back sides. I'm going to do the same with this side and pull it through. Now, first of all, you can see that there was no nesting at the beginning. This is where we started. There's absolutely no nesting because we were holding that thread. Obviously, it helps that I didn't go back and forth, so that is a definite win on that as well. You're not going to find it nests as much. On a regular seam, I will show you another line of stitching actually, just holding it and doing a cast on, going backwards and forwards. But to finish it, to have no visual kind of knot or anything, we are actually going to knot it. So I've pulled both threads to the back. I mean, this is going to be on the inside of your bag anyway, or the inside of your applique, so it's not so much of an issue. If it was an applique, I would just tie it in a knot and snip the ends, and I would add a little bit of fray check, which I have got here. This is the clear liquid fray check that I absolutely love, and I would just put a dab on there. You definitely want to get this one, the prim clear one. There was some discussion within my club, the 77 Club, about which one to get, and this one was the, some people had bought the other one, Fray Stop. Easy to get confused, but that one is more like a PVA. This one is very clear and it really does the job. It's a little bit more like super glue. So if it was applique, almost did it then, I would just cut the ends. Not too short, probably about that long. It's on the inside, but on the front you've got that really nice finish. However, we are going to imagine this is the top of our bag. Even if it's the front, it's totally fine. I'm going to get a needle. I don't want it too small because I want the eye to be fairly large. And I'm going to lick the ends, classic. Thread the needle with both threads at the same time. Then we're going to pop that into the hole and through to the inside. And I'm going to pull it through, and hopefully you can see, and I'm going to give it a bit of a tug so that the knot disappears. Can you see that? The knot actually disappears inside of the work. You cannot see that. Now, obviously, if this is top stitching the bag, this might be at the end. You might not be able to get into the middle. What I then tend to do, if it's a fabric that doesn't keep the hole, if that makes sense, so faux leather, vinyl, leather, if you pierce it, it's going to keep that hole there. This one, not so much actually, I noticed, but often you'll keep a hole there, and you don't want to have a hole in your work. So if that's the case, I would then go out through the side seam, or even back on itself if you can, and back out the top. You can use a curved needle for that. That makes that a little bit easier as well. Cut the threads, and then that is really neat, and it's all inside. You can't even see that knot. Another way to finish it, on the same side, I've pulled through the ends at the threads at the other end, and I am going to do a knot again. And this time what you can do, and you know what I haven't done, is I haven't grabbed my lighter, which was really silly, but I've cut them so that the threads are quite short, and I would then use a lighter to just burn the ends, and you'll find that the ends kind of sizzle away. Now, caveat, you do have to be very careful. Faux leather especially, and vinyl, is going to melt with heat. You can get a thread zapper, which I have got, but honestly, I don't know if mine's broken. I haven't got along with it very well. But I know that my friend Kim of Cascona Designs, she uses that all the time. But you can just use a lighter. It won't go kind of like catch fire. Just if it does, it's just like a tiny little flame and you blow it out. And you'll find that then the ends, because it's polyester thread, you should be using polyester thread on your bag making, they will kind of singe and melt and go into a little knot, which creates an added layer of security. Obviously, you're not going to want to do that on the outside of your bag. You're only going to want to do that on the inside. If it's the outside, I would go for that first technique. But, one second. But there is a third way to do it as well. So I'm going to show you one more way before I say goodbye. Okay, so going back to the machine, I'm going to grab my last sample. Just checking the comments. Zena says, do you use regular needles in your machine? I do, because this is the HD9 heavy duty and you can't get too many different types. I'm pretty sure this is just the regular. Yeah, it's just the I think it's HLX5 is the needle size, the needle type. Yeah, and it's a 100 size. But for my Bernina and my domestic machines, I use a Microtex, sorry. Forgot the name then because I haven't used one for so long. I use a Microtex needle always for any bag making, because even if you're not using your faux leather or your vinyl, you're going to be wanting to get through a lot of interfacing and stabilizer, and the Microtex is going to be able to pierce through those layers. It's thin, it's sharp, and it's super strong, so that is always the best one to use. If you're finding that that is not enough on some bulky seams, then you go up to a jeans needle, but never a leather needle on your faux leather or your vinyl. What's the other question? I love your nail polish. Thank you, Jessica. Zoe, I have tried and cannot get the top thread at the start to pull through to the back. Not sure if it is my machine or me, but I just can't do it. Can't get the top thread to could that be because your if your foot is down, you will not be able to pull the thread. Let's see if I can show you. It's very hard to pull the thread through the machine. If your foot is up, you can indeed pull, well, I shouldn't really pull it through the needle like that, but you can pull the thread through the machine and then pull it out the back. I wonder if that is the trouble that you're having, Zoe. Okay, so the third method is to, and I've seen a lot of people talking about this recently, is to stitch within the seam allowance. So let's imagine we are doing our top stitching here. This would not be on the end top stitching around the top of your bag. This would be for your zipper plackets or different pieces as you're going through that you need to top stitch. So we're imagining that this is, you know, a fancy bit that we need to finish nicely. But what you're actually going to do, and this is the seam edge that we're doing, what we're actually going to do is we're going to start in on the other seam edge. So as you can see, I've gone at a right angle here. I'm imagining that I need to baste this edge anyway. So let's in fact start at the end of that, making sure that that is still nicely together and we haven't skewed it too much. I'm going to extend my stitch length up to a 6. And I didn't hold my threads. This time I'm going to go backwards and forwards a couple times so you can show that it doesn't nest because I am still holding it. I'm going to carry on. I can let go now. Once I've done a couple of stitches, I can let go. I'm going to keep my needle in so that we can pivot nicely. I'm going to go to the end here, pivot my work, and then I've cast on that edge. I don't need to then cast on here. We don't have anything then on this edge. We're not going to have the threat of nesting. Even if you have nesting, it's way back here within your basting seam allowance and out of your seam. But hopefully you don't, because you've held the threads. And then we can get going and we can do our top stitch. So we're going to go down to a 4 and we're going to top stitch along that edge. And just like on the other side, we're going to lift the foot up, extend the stitch up to a 6 stitch length, go back within that other basted edge that we need to do, and we can cast off if we want to, couple stitches, and take out the work. So for that time, you can see that we have kept it well out of the seams of our nice top stitching edge, and we've also sort of done a double whammy, and we have basted where we needed to baste on those other edges as well. Okay, let me pop across to and see if you have any questions. Here we go. Tried and tried. Thanks for that info about the needles. No worries, Zena. No, I mean on the work, to pull the threads through to knot them. Oh, okay. Euro says it's probably your needle is not positioned properly. Domestic groove to the back, domestic in machine groove to the right. Yes. Okay. So you're not fine. You're not being able to pull the threads through. I think I know why. Let me help you. Yes, Hillary. Yeah, Hillary's got it. The machine pulls it through at the end when it cuts the thread, but at the start I just can't get it to pull through to knot it off. I've tried pulling one thread, it just doesn't come through. Hillary says, when I want to tie my threads, I put them both in between the two pieces of fabric and tie them off there so you can't see the knot. Excellent. Yes, that's a brilliant tip. You're not doing a lock stitch. Esther says, very clever. Thread the top thread onto a needle and sew it through to the back. Yes, exactly. Right, so Zoe. Yes, so Deb has said, try not using the thread cutter, Zoe. Pulling your threads longer. That has just disappeared. Okay, that's been retracted. Okay, so how to do that. So what you might find, let me pop across to the other camera. What you might find when you're pulling it through, you said that you weren't doing a cast on or locking stitch or back stitch to start. You might find that your needle is piercing the thread, especially if you're using a thicker thread. Then it can be quite tricky. It may be, so yes, especially if it's, the other thing is as well, if it's nesting at the beginning, you're going to find it hard to pull through because it's winding it round. Where's my nested one? It's winding it round and it's creating its own knot. So you're going to find it really tricky to pull it through in that instance. So what I would suggest is that you hold both the threads at the back when you start. That is going to stop it nesting, and hopefully it's going to help you to pull it through at the end to tie it off. Hopefully that helps, Zoe, and do let us know. Get back to us in the Facebook group and let us know how you're getting on with that, and hopefully, if not, we can help you a little bit more. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, and if you're watching on replay, don't forget, like I say, to let me know how you get on, and let me know if you found this useful in the comments box below. If you found this useful as well, please do share with some sewing friends. And finally, if you would like to join us in the Facebook group, you can find a link to that in the description too. And I will see you back here next Thursday for another live tip or trick of the day. Sometimes we do full tutorials too. And don't forget, on the last Thursday of every month, we do a bag making news roundup. So do check that out. You can find all of the lives on my channel. Just hit the lives tab and you can find them all there. Find the ones coming up too, click the notify, and then YouTube will send you a notification. Thank you again, everybody, and I shall see you all very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.